welcome to Inside the Birds Postgame Live, presented by MyBookie. Bet anything, anytime, and anywhere, only with MyBookie. And as we're talking about betting, if you took the Eagles at the beginning of the year at over 11.5 wins for the season, you didn't win. And that's probably surprising considering the Eagles at one point were 10-1. But here's the deal. For the second straight week, the Eagles get bullied and dismantled by one of the NFL's worst teams as they close the regular season with a 27-10 loss to the New York Giants. A 17-point loss that really wasn't even that close. To break it all down, I'm Geoff Mosher alongside my Inside the Birds co-host, Adam Caplan, and joining us as always on the post-game show all season long, former Eagles tight end Clay Harbor. Fellas, my eyes, they hurt, man. What did we just watch? What just happened, Clay, to the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, they got embarrassed, and they had everything in front of them, and obviously you can't hold the whole game to them, but they're in disarray, Jeff. And I mean, as a player in this situation, you got to be thinking, man, like there's no hope. There is no light at the end of the tunnel. You want to just get back, reset. They don't have that much time. Obviously, they got the Buccaneers coming up in the playoffs, but get a good solid week of practice. Hopefully watch the film, get something out of it, and then hope to turn some things around. But right now, as a player, your confidence is an all-time low. I mean, you've just lost 5 or 6 games. You kind of forget how it feels to win. You don't remember what it takes to get over that hump. And you're kind of expecting negative things to happen. You're expecting bad things to happen. And instead of being, hey, we're going to get through this. We're going to persevere. We're going to make this play. Now it's kind of spiraling on you. I've been in those situations on a winning streak. Okay, we're going to figure out a way to win this game. We're going to figure out a way to make the playoffs. In 2016, I was with the Detroit Lions. We were 4-6, and we ended up winning out and making the playoffs, right? And during that streak, we just felt like nothing could stop us. We were going to win. We're going to make the playoffs. And I've been on the opposite streak. Okay? I've been on the streak to where we can't figure out how to win a game. And that's something that's real. And they're going to have to figure this out soon because obviously the playoffs start. I don't think there's an end in sight. Matt Patricia has shown his defense just doesn't work. He's sending blitzes. He's doing all these. You got man-on-man coverage. You got guys running free. His defense isn't working. In my opinion, they should consider going back to Sean Desai. I know it's a 1 week, but this defense does not work. I'm sorry. It's the New York Giants we're talking about here, and you can't stop them. What do you think a good team in the playoffs is going to do to you? So right now, it is a pretty hopeless situation. And to me, it's just like mercifully, like put him out of his misery. The deer's on the road. You just hit it with the car. You know it's over, but can you just put it out of its misery? That's how I'm feeling right now. I'm sorry.
No actual deer were harmed in the streaming here of Inside the Birds Postgame Live. I get your point. I chuckle. I was thinking about Sean Desai during this game, and my thought was that if Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni and anybody came up to me this week and said, hey, Sean, things didn't work well, we want to go back to you as play caller for the playoff game, I'd be like, I'm good, thanks. I look better each week. I'm just going to sit here and just take my demotion like you gave to me. Adam, the crazy thing is this. Here's why. Listen, I try not to hit extremes. You do too. We don't do that. But here's what's the real big problem, as Clay just alluded to. For 6 weeks now, and remember, the one win they had against the Giants 2 weeks ago felt like a loss also. So for 6 weeks now, we have talked either after each game about, oh man, what's wrong with this offense? What's wrong with Brian Johnson? Or like last week, right? What's wrong with this defense? What's wrong with Matt Patricia or Sean Desai? And today against the Giants, in this game, this season finale, when you are hoping that they can do something good to go into the playoffs, they collapse on both sides of the ball. I cannot sit here and say, hey, well, at least there was something encouraging out of this or that. They literally just imploded right before our eyes.
And now they have major injury concerns. Let's not forget they play through the illness. Slade, because to come back from these surgeries, first few practices. Smith wasn't ready with the ankle. Fletcher Cox was rested. See, that's another thing. Fletcher Cox was rested. That tells you they were not going to take this game very seriously. I don't care what they say. That sets the tone. And now you've got what looks to be a bad injury with Sidney Brown. We'll see on A.J. Brown with his right knee injury. And then Reed Blankenship with a groin injury. It could be a short week. We don't know exactly when they're going to play the Bucs next weekend. So they got major concerns now. And then, he plays sobering up as a former player. I mean, he just described what it's like when you're struggling and you don't feel like you can get out of it. This is troubling. And Sirianni, this is, again, his first crisis. There's no bye week. They're actually going to be on the road. We know that they're one of the better road teams. Or they haven't been lately. They finished the regular season 5-4 on the road. But this is an absolute disaster right now. I don't know how they get out of it. I'd heard, Jeff, the team meeting with A.J. Brown when he called it with players went well, but I don't want to say it didn't go well today because he got hurt early and, who knows how the players reacted. But they're not doing anything well, just like Clay said. They're on both sides of the football. I hate to bring this up now, but I'm going to bring it up to you guys, Jeff, and we'll start with you. What do they do well right now?
Oh, here we go. Oh, man. Braden Mann, I mentioned the Jake Elliott field goals. I mean, hey, special teams has not failed them this year. So Braden Mann's doing a good job punting. They don't. And, we'll get into the offense and defense because I still think that there were some things, even though they were, pulled guys in the second half, but there were still some things in the first half, offensively and defensively, that made me scratch my head. And to your point, Adam, you're right. If this was a playoff game, Fletcher Cox would have played. So there was an element of not concession or submission, but they didn't have their fullest of full. But at the same time, they were trying to score points and stop the opposing offense in the first half. And they did a very lousy job of doing that. Clay, I want to, so before we break down this, let's leave the big picture stuff on this. Is there any recovery let me ask you, because I know what's going to happen, right? I think the Eagles maybe can rebound and beat the Buccaneers. And whenever the Eagles win a game, it's like the tide suddenly turns and now we're back. Now we're going to go to the 49ers and kick their ass. Is there any scenario where you see even an Eagles win gets them really, truly back after what you've watched for 6 weeks?
It's kind of what you guys said, right? So Slay comes back. Fletcher's rested. I mean, you really don't got much to lean on, but maybe AJ isn't that serious. I don't know what happened, what came out with the injury news there yet. Maybe he can play after Tampa if he can play in Tampa. Maybe that brings a spark, right? You get some of these guys back. Maybe that brings a spark, but I'll be honest, Jalen Hurts doesn't even look like Jalen Hurts to me. He doesn't even look like he's throwing the ball the same. He's not moving the same. I don't know if something's going to come out after the season's over and say, hey, this guy was dealing with this or that. He doesn't even look like the same quarterback to me as last year. And you got the same offensive line. You got the same weapons on offense. So I'm a little bit, concerned about that. What happened in a year to Jalen Hurts when he's got a lot of the same pieces around him, obviously. But with that offensive line, that's something I always come back to. They got a good offensive line. Nobody can take that away. Obviously, today, Jalen was getting pressured. But with that offensive line, they are not going to get dominated in a game. Your offensive line, you are going to have protection. If Jalen can catch fire, if something can happen there, Jalen turns into Jalen from last year, starts running, throwing, you get Slay back, you get Fletcher's rested, the D-line starts getting some pressure somehow, then that's the small piece of hope I have. I've been on teams on runs like this. I don't want to bring this up. You guys are probably already in a bad mood, but if you go back to the 2012 Eagles, we started 3-1. We lost in that 3-1. We lose 2 close games. And after these 2 close games that we lost, it was just like we got in this role. We lost 8 straight games, and that's obviously the year Andy Reid got fired. It just feels like a kind of a similar vibe where you have the players. We had the same player. You have good players. You have guys that have done it in the league before. You're better than the guy across from you, but just can't put it together. And you get dominated. And at the end of the day, you lose. To me, that's what it feels like.
Yeah, and obviously that's the year that Juan Castillo was fired in his second year of defensive coordinator, and Todd Bowles took over. 2 guys who come from completely different philosophical backgrounds on how to run a defense. And so I can see sort of some of the elements of that right now with Sean Desai, Matt Patricia, and just the whole vibe of the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, as you guys mentioned, the Eagles are in the playoffs. They will be on the road next week to play the NFC South powerhouse Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who somehow won the division for the 3rd straight year with that just manslaughter of a 9-0 victory, I think it was, over the Carolina Panthers. That game might set football back 50 years, but they have to play it by league rule. So the Eagles will travel to Tampa. We'll wait for the information on that game to come out as far as when it is. The winner of that game likely will go to San Francisco. Not definite, because obviously if there's a upset with involving the Packers or the Rams, those are lower seeds. They would go play San Francisco. But that's how it be. I can't wait to see what the line for Eagles Buccaneers is going to be. And maybe more so, I can't wait to see what the over under is going to be between these two struggling offenses. And speaking of that, let's talk about the beauty of my bookie. It's not just about watching games, but turning every second into a potential win. With my bookie, you can stream games and live bet them, and you can turn any game day into a payday. Who's ready to up their game? Are the Eagles ready to up their game? Anyway, sign up today and make your first deposit with promo code The Birds for a sweet deposit bonus up to $1,000. That's promo code The Birds, all one word, THEBIRDS, to claim your bonus. It's not just a promo code. It is your secret weapon to get the extra edge on the house. And the best part is, you don't need to be a sports whiz to win at my bookie. You can cash in on everything from politics to your favorite shows and then some. So bet anything, anytime, and anywhere only with my bookie. A lot to discuss. I tend to agree with you both. I'm going to quote Biggie here and say it's time to call the coroner. Going to be a lot of slow singing and flower bringing for the Philadelphia Eagles, because it is not looking really good right now. Let's talk about the Eagles defense, because I'm really, it's not that I'm glad, but Adam, we talked in pregame live that just because the Arizona Cardinals decided that they were going to take aim at the Eagles run defense and run for 220 yards does not mean that the Giants were going to do it too. The Giants don't run the way the Cardinals do. They don't power and gap the way the Cardinals did. It's just not their way. They threw the ball. They did not run the ball very much today. They threw the ball today, which shows you that the Eagles defense right now is not just a run defense issue. It is a top to bottom, start to front, schematic, personnel, everything. You can beat the Philadelphia Eagles whatever way you decide to draw up your offensive attack.
Yeah, actually, the Eagles control their run. They did. I know Barkley scored twice, but in terms of just raw numbers, they did a good job. Marlon Tuipulotu, we mentioned the pregame show. He got a nice run, made some good plays. Zach Cunningham was back, so that certainly helped them. But man, you just hit on it. That first drive, when the pass over the middle, I was like, "What the spacing that was allowed?" I'm like, "What the hell's going on here?" And whether it was Tyrod Taylor, who left the game and came back with his hand injury. He did a good job. Boy, he's played well against the Eagles in these two games. They didn't get a lot of pressure on him. Now, had this been a more competitive game, and maybe they would have played with more urgency, but he still played a good game, did a good job considering the issues, and they gave up some big plays. Wan'Dale Robinson had an excellent game. Slayton, who's an Eagle killer, did a good job. Waller had that 23-yard play. Hodgins had a nice play over the middle. The Eagles secondary was struggling again. We know that Slay didn't play. We don't know how well Slay's going to play next week, assuming he does play. Lack of pass rush. Yes, Fletcher Cox will play next week. That will help them. But man, you mentioned it earlier. This change to Matt Patricia as the play caller. To say it has not worked would be an understatement. And we described what we'd heard from sources about what the tape looks like. More two-gapping. Players are not comfortable. The tape shows that there's some real issues here. And Patricia trying to put on his mark has actually hurt the defense. It's not helping.
Clay, I know you're going to wait for the all-22. I'm sure you'll break it down with Greg Cosell later in the week. But I'm surprised it hasn't happened earlier. But obviously, Nolan Smith has been playing a different roles with the Eagles. He's been in on the edge. He's been as a linebacker, off-ball linebacker, and a 5-1 look. Whatever he's put on tape, the Giants thought, "Ooh, we can get Barkley matched up against him." And it looks like they went spread and empty a lot, right, to try to get those one-on-ones. And they popped the wheel to Barkley. That was just a killer right there.
What makes Matt Patricia think that Nolan Smith, whose expertise is rushing the passer, is going to guard Saquon Barkley one-on-one? Nothing. This whole situation, not only is it not fair to Patricia because he doesn't have the guys, he doesn't have the time to teach what he wants to do. He doesn't have the guys to run his style of defense. Not that his defense has been so successful in the past when he's done it, the recent past at least. It's not fair to the players. They're trying to learn this on the fly. And when you look at the film, there's just guys all over the place open. Now, the run game last week, okay, this week you got, like Adam alluded to, there's a couple times they just had wide open crossing routes. Then you got Nolan Smith guarding Saquon Barkley. That is not the matchup you want. I mean, just so many problems and issues with this whole switch. To me, with Matt Patricia, there's really not much hope. Honestly, he hasn't shown the ability to stop anybody. To be 100% honest, and I'm not just saying this just to say it. I think if they were realistically one of the best chance to beat the Buccaneers, you go back to Sean Desai.
Ain't gonna happen.
Because whatever it's not going to happen. But looking at this, the games that he's been coaching DC, he is not putting up any resistance. They're not they're not in the right spots. They don't even know if there was a new offensive coordinator in the middle of the season and they bring this guy and they switch and now we're running new plays and new schemes and doing different. I'm like, what is going on here? We didn't have time to practice this in training camp. We didn't have time to practice this in OTAs. We weren't studying this in the off season and doing all these things week in and week out in the beginning of the season. Then you bring in a new offensive coordinator and now I go from, running the 2 tight end move stuff and now I'm playing fullback or something, putting me in a different spot. That's not going to work. You're putting guys in situations where they can't be successful. Nolan Smith shouldn't be guarding Saquon Barkley. He should be edge rushing. I shouldn't have been playing wide receiver. New offensive coordinator come out playing wide. No, that's not how you do things in the NFL. And to me, it goes back to Nick Sirianni. Maybe he's not the one making a defensive call, but he made this move to Matt Patricia. And you have a little bit of hope with Desai. Maybe he's not perfect, but he's better than Patricia. So overall, to me, it's just a terrible situation for the coach and for the players.
Right. I think you're doing a great job of shining a light. And you did it when you talked about the switch over from Juan to Todd 2, of explaining just how difficult of an ask that is and unfair for not only the coordinator himself, both of them, but also the players and the personnel. And I still go back to wondering, Adam, what was the expectation? We know they made the move because they felt that that Patricia's play calling past his resume would enable him to maybe make some better decisions. But I just don't understand how a rational organization that is pretty good about being forward thinking and not being impulsive usually would think that. And I know a lot of people supported the move, and I hope those who understand now that it's one thing to go from one guy to another if it's a similar guy and you just want same concept, different set of eyes. I get that. We see that with offense all the time. I'm a good play caller. I'm struggling. I'll give it to you. We both are West Coast guys. But what Clay just said, Matt Patricia did not run the style of defense that Sean Desai was running, that even John Gannon was his variation of it 2 years. To ask him and the players to have executed better instead of worse, right? I think statistically they are clearly worse. To me, that's a reflection of just a very impulsive decision that was not a very good decision, and it's hurting them.
They couldn't go forward with the sides. I understand the players just they stopped believing in what they were learning. There's that saying, if Clay can relate to this, if the players don't think they're getting better, they're going to be issues.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lack of buy-in, but yet he saw the Miami game, right? Which was his best game called. Desai did a great job there. You saw good examples. I think Clay was pointing to that. You saw some good examples already this season. But then it started to get away from him about 3 or 4 games where the offense had to bail them out a little bit. The Buffalo game, the Kansas City game, particularly the Buffalo game, where they came back and won the game in the second half, and the Cowboy game, which was ridiculous. The defense didn't play well there. And they wanted to make a change. And, the only similarity is they both were brought up in a 34 front, but that's it. It's completely different. The Belichick defense and Fangio are completely different.
Yeah, and that's where I would say, Adam, if I was the GM or the head coach, right, and I felt that the players were having a real tough time buying into my defensive coordinator's system when I'm 10-2 or 3, whatever they were at the time, I would also say, you know what, players can be impatient too. They're not perfect. They don't always think the right way, and maybe I need to sit them down and explain to them that if I am going to demote the defensive coordinator and put somebody else in place. Well, the guy who I'm going to put in place has no experience in this defense. So how do I expect you, who's an unhappy player, to buy in to a system you've never freaking played in before, and a guy who's going to put you in a position there he doesn't know how to do? So what do you want? You may want door number 2, but here's door number 2. It sucks. All right. So do you want door number 2, or do you want to go back to door number 1? If I'm a player, I might think, you know what? I was upset. I was annoyed, but the way you put it, all right, we're going to have to go door number 1 and take our best shot. I mean, am I crazy? Like, you can't just let players just rule everything. They're imperfect too.
I hear you, but here's the problem. One thing, guys, I just want to say. Okay, so let's just say you and I reported this back at the combine, for goodness sake. We were told if he was going to get the job, decide they were going to have a senior defensive assistant.
Yes.
Gave you the names. You had, was it Mike Patton was not available, which we confirmed, and Patricia's the other one.
Right.
So he was an experienced guy. If you go through their entire defensive staff, no one's ever called a defense. So it's either Patricia or they ride it out, as you're suggesting. Somehow they get the buy-in. I don't know how you do it. Look, you don't make a move like this. It wasn't that bad, by the way. Decided to do that bad of a job.
Exactly. Yeah.
Saying it's just really bizarre. As you said, it's not like them to do this. We haven't seen this since the craziness of you were outlined earlier to start with Todd Bowles coming out of he was a defensive backs coach for them.
Yes. / like senior assistant, something like that. Yeah.
Right. They had to, because it was bad. They were 10-1 for what did it? By the way, all right, we know they were 10-1. They've now lost 5 out of 6.
Right. They made the switch after the Buffalo loss, I want to say. That was actually a win. They lost to San Francisco. They lost to Dallas. They were 10-3. They beat Buffalo. Seattle was his first game, right? So whoever
Dallas lost, so they got clubbed.
Right. The second Dallas loss. Yeah.
So and they weren't good. They weren't good. But in every single metric since Patricia has taken over, like I going and researching this stuff, every single metric, they're in the 30s. They're either 30th, 31st, or 32nd in everything. I mean, just awful bad. And the other thing it does, switching the coordinators, right? Some guys probably really like Desai, because I remember when Juan did lose his job, some guys were like, man, they did Juan dirty. They should have gave him the full seat. Some guys still probably like Desai, and they believe, okay, this is BS. I want to play for Juan. Then some guys probably like Patricia. But now you're putting some of the players against. I like Desai. I like Patricia. I like Juan. I like Bowles. Some of the guys are going back and forth. And it's just another thing to throw into a team when you're trying to focus on winning games and just running the best defense. You want to play as free as possible. That's why you spend all those hours in OTAs, all those hours in training camp, all those hours during the beginning of the season, improving, making corrections so you can continue to get better at the system you're running, at the offense. Right. In my case, the defense in this case, to now you're just throwing, it's just new stuff. And I know you weren't great. You were a middle of the pack defense and you wanted to be better. But at that point, like, hey, we're not going to be a great defense. Okay. We need to do whatever we can to stay in the middle of the pack. And we're supposed to have this great offense. You're paying your quarterback dang near $250 million. You got 2 big time top 10 receivers. You got a solid running game, and you got one of the best offensive line in the league. Okay, let's focus on offense, do what we can in defense, keep it same. Maybe we get some pressure, some stops, and win the games with our offense. That's what we need to do. Instead of this craziness that basically just derailed the whole season. And the fact that you were 10-2 or whatever they were and you did this, to me, is insane. And now you're going into a game, you've lost 5 of your last 6. The Buccaneers have won 5 of their last 6. They've won 5 of their last 6 games. They are on a roll. This isn't an easy Buccaneers team that we're used to with that record. They've been on a roll. They're not the same team that people are thinking of. They've won 5 of their last 6 games, one of the hottest teams in the NFL. This is not a great matchup.
Yeah, and to add injury to insult as we move away from the defense here, because I got other than the fact that the Eagles probably lead the NFL in giving up the 8-yard hitch or the 5-yard quick. I mean, it's ridiculous how many easy passes underneath get completed on the Eagles. Which again, that goes back to the lack of dynamic, lack of speed, lack of athleticism in this back end. But injury to insult, we'll have to see what happens with Sidney Brown. He left on a cart. I believe it was on a special. It was a kickoff return, if I'm not mistaken, where he got hurt. I think the on the broadcast they were in commercial when he got carted off. So I don't know if everybody saw it, but he did get carted off. And I heard Howard Eskin describe it on the radio as he was very emotional as he was being carted off. So hopefully
not a good sign.
we hope the best for Sidney Brown, but he's had to play a lot of snaps in their big nickel. And now that leaves, if he's unable to play, you're talking about a position of a depth issue again at a position where you don't have it.
They're down 3 guys. Brown knee, Blankenship groin, Evans for the season. They're down to Kevin Byard and Tristan McCullum right.
Yeah. Do you think the Blankenship one was more like, I'm getting out of this game, or like a real? Well, I guess we'll find out. I don't
guess on that stuff.
That's
groin. That's it.
We don't want to get into that.
Week, by the way, they could be playing Saturday.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, great point.
Let's go to offense in a second.
All right, we'll go to offense. Go to offense in a second.
By the way, Cam Jurgensen with an eye injury. He got
eye injury. Before we get into offense, let's take a minute to hear from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter makes sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
All right, welcome back to Inside the Birds Postgame Live. Geoff Mosher, Adam Caplan, and of course, former Eagles tight end Clay Harbor. You just heard from our friends at Ocean Casino Resort, the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. All right, offensively, here's what's really troubling. Wink Martindale's going to blitz. He's going to bring pressure. He's going to get a couple free rushers on the fake disguise blitzes. He did everything that's in the Wink Martindale playbook, and I swear, more so this game than ever before, you would have thought Jalen Hurts, the offensive line, the backs, had never seen it before. How many throws, Clay, do you think Jalen Hurts was making off of his back foot, just trying to get rid of it while somebody was in his face? Had to be countless.
Countless. And at this point in the season, you have literally every game of the year to go on. You got the last game you just played against them. You got so much tape to watch. They put in these little folders. So you go, okay, here's the blitz package. Here's a third down blitz package. Here's the first down, second down. You guys are acting like they haven't seen these blitzes before. Right. You guys go through meetings all week. You know it's coming. At this point, this is still a game you want to win. Dallas is losing. They're in a battle with the Commanders. And to come out and just get pressured like that, that's concerning. You're watching the tape. You know what blitz is coming. You got veteran guys up front. And like I said, Jalen, for whatever reason, it doesn't seem like he's as comfortable, as confident. He's not picking up the blitz the same. He's not getting to the hot reads the same. And maybe it's because, he's injured. I don't know what's going on. But to me, it looks like he is not as quick in his decision-making with everything that he's doing this year. So hopefully you put on the Bucs film. Obviously, Todd Bowles is a guy coming in is going to be running some blitzes too. We know Bowles likes to run blitzes. Wink Martindale likes to run blitzes. These guys will scheme up some crazy stuff. But the best thing about it is you got tape and you got film and you can be prepared for this stuff. Obviously, they're trying to confuse you, but very concerning how they're able at this point in the season to get all that pressure on them.
100%. And you know what? Sometimes, Adam, you get what you ask for. No DeAndre Swift because of an illness, right? So that forces you to have to play Rashad Penny a little bit. You got to dust the cobwebs off. You got to remember what he looks like. You got to remember what number to call on the sideline when you want him to get. What's Penny's number again? I haven't called it in 7 weeks.
23, I think.
Yeah, 23. But the problem of trying to play, and I'm sure Clay as a tight end, a blocker can explain. I mean, this is a blitzing team. That guy is out there in some situations where he was asked to pick up blitzes and you could tell he was not right. I mean, Adam, like when you don't play a guy and then you have to, you ask what you get for it. I mean, like that. I don't blame Rashad Penny, but it's like their whole offense looked dysfunctional from the start because of that.
Yeah, a couple things here. So look at my notes here. Gainwell looked pretty good. He did. He get it up in there. Penny, no outside zone stuff that I was expecting. He's a one-cut, toss right, outside, get upfield. That's what made him special with Seattle. Now, we know that he did not look good in training camp. We know his legs might be shot, in terms of explosion. He didn't look good today. No question about it. Gainwell's their best pass protector, so you understood why he was in. Quez Watkins certainly stood out. He had a good best game as an Eagle. It's good things today. There were some decent things in offense, but they couldn't protect. The Giants, as you said, they brought the kitchen sink. They knew they could. When you looked at no Devontae Smith, okay, no A.J. Brown for almost the entire game, get after him, because you know that Hurts is not going to go with. He's not working with guys he's normally going to be working with the first unit. By the way, Britton Covey had to play a lot in the second half if they had low numbers.
Yeah.
So it was a nightmare. But I guess the positive certainly is that they did run the ball well. But overall, now we don't know about Juergens with the eye injury. We'll learn more about that. But they at least have definitely offensive line. But you take out, I forgot to mention Devontae Smith not playing. You take out their best targets, other than Goddard, it's the other two guys, and Swift. It's going to be a problem.
All right, I got to ask you this, Clay. We don't want to speculate on injuries, but I'm going to ask you if you can relate in any way. You did see at one point on a 4th and 2, Jalen Hurts, and I have no idea why they're throwing the ball 10 to 15 yards on 4th and 2 when they've all year long converted that with great runs. But they decided to throw, again, free rusher, right? And he bangs his finger on the helmet, and you saw on the broadcast that there was definitely either swollen or dislocated.
Dislocated finger.
Looked dislocated.
Yeah, dislocated finger. Absolutely. Yeah, and
is that easy to play? Have you had that? Is it easier to play through?
Horrible. Honestly, for me, it was brutal. But obviously, I'm a tight end, right? So the fact, my finger is dislocated. They have to take off my glove. I remember the last time I'm in Jacksonville. I take off my glove. My finger's pointing this way. They put it back in. Oh. Okay, punt return team. Okay, Clay, you're back on the field. And then you go in, you just wrap it up because you can't put a club around it because you're a catch football. You're a tight end. Brutal injury for offensive line. Well, not as bad for an offensive lineman. You can wrap it up. For a tight end, especially linebacker, you can kind of wrap it up. Tight end, brutal injury. Quarterback, it comes down to grip. You're not going to have to bang it every play, but if you can grip it, it shouldn't be that bad of an injury. For a tight end, it was brutal because you can't wrap the thing up in a club. You can't put 3 fingers together. You got to be able to spread your hand out. One of the worst injuries. I used to hate jammed and dislocated fingers. Had a few of them, unfortunately. And one of them was when Brian Dable was my coach. Obviously, we were playing as Dable. We had a classic Brian Dable, Matt Patricia matchup. Those guys are very familiar with each other. I remember them in practice with the Patriots, just jawing back and forth all the time. Dable is a big talker. You got the better at Patricia here today. But yeah, it's a tough injury if you're a tight end. If a quarterback, it's just a grip thing. You're not going to be hitting anybody as a quarterback, but you could get some issues if you bang it on somebody again, and it comes out a lot easier. After it happens once, it happens again a lot easier. Next thing you know, you'll have a couple of dislocations, painful injury. But if you're quarterback, I don't think it should be a big deal unless it's like a thumb. If it's just a ring finger, which it was. So I think he should be okay as far as playing to the level he's been playing, which obviously isn't the greatest, but there won't be any drop off.
All right, good insight on that because I didn't know if that takes like a week or two to fully feel good. So that's good.
Go right back in the game. Brutal though. Brutal.
Yeah. So they turned it over on downs after that, and then the next possession. This one I really was confused on. On the next possession, they get the 3rd down. This is when he winds up getting intercepted by Xavier McKinney. He's throwing down the left side, double coverage. But again, it looks like the Giants bring the house, and that's not on the replay that they showed, it didn't look like there was anybody there like as a hot route or a quick release, or again, he threw the ball double coverage down the left side. I wonder, is this, because we've talked about this a lot, sort of a route concept issue against the blitz? Don't you have to give him better outlets?
Yeah, if it's not zero blitz, you should be able to have it picked up. But once again, when you're in the back there and you're that running back, I did a lot of that in my time in Jacksonville where I was in the backfield and you have to decipher these blitzes, and it takes reps. Some offensive linemen, you have certain rules, but you know how they play. The offensive lineman is supposed to take the big, but sometimes they'll take the inside. So you play off of these guys and you start to okay, this is what he does. Sometimes it's just a full scan. They call. You got to scan and take the guy that's unblocked. So if it's not zero, they should have it picked up, and you should be able to get into these route concepts. So there isn't a built-in hot all the time, unless say it's a 0 or something. You have to, lose your scan and leak out to the give them an option to throw the ball. So there's obviously different protections, but in my history of playing and being in that specific position, there should be, if it's a 0, you got to have an outlet, but if it's not, you should be able to have it picked up.
Right. Yeah, very alarming. Adam, I thought of you when Marcus Mariota came in and tried to throw a screen. I thought of you calling the Eagles one of the worst screen teams you've ever seen. And before Marcus Mariota gets picked off on just a bubble screen. And you know what? And again, I think this goes back to, I think that the way the Giants jumped on that, they knew it was coming. This is something we've talked about a lot, is like when you're doing the same things over and over, out of the same formations and giving the same looks, the defense, you're giving them an edge. And it felt like that on that.
Took forever to run that play too. And that, if you watch that wasn't even the defender that you're worried about.
Right.
That's a guy that's not even the guy you block. That guy's supposed to be beat by the play, the speed. You get out and you run, and that's who picked it off.
Yeah, watch the Texans tape versus the Colts. Watch the screen. There's a nice little screen in Nico Collins had a monster game against the Colts. I don't understand why certain teams are so good at it. I know spacing's a big deal. It shouldn't be this tough. Like, we'll talk. I know people want to. We've got a lot of questions emailed to us about the offseason. Folks, we're going to deal with the offseason when there's the offseason. As soon as they lose the playoffs, it could be this coming week, whatever that is, we review the next game, and we're on full force in the offseason. To-do lists, free agency, draft is last. But we start hammering what they need to do. But Nick Sirianni in offense has got to take a look at himself. It's not working, okay? It's not. They've progressed significantly. I don't want to hear about this guy left or that guy left. They lost Miles Sanders, for goodness sake. Big deal. Got benched in Carolina. And they lost Sayamalu. By the way, the Steelers tell me was their best lineman. But that's not why the Eagles offense has progressed. Please. They got to look at how they call plays. They got to get Hurts back on board here, back about where he was. It's going to be hard. That was pretty elite last year. But they've got a major project trying to get back to where they were. And Nick's got to take responsibility for this.
Well, they don't. Yeah, and they don't have a whole lot of time to do it. They've got to go to Tampa for now the second time in 3 years for a first-round playoff game. And hey, there might be, if somebody can stomach actually paying for tickets and airfare and a hotel to go to this game, God bless you. But you might be able to find some great tickets online for this game on the Game Time app. You need the Game Time app. It's the fast, easy way to buy tickets for sporting events, concerts, and theater shows near you. In fact, you might want to go check out a comedy locally to get your mind off how bad the Eagles have been lately. You can certainly find a good comedy show at Helium or any of the great venues using the Game Time app, because Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. And right now on the Game Time app, you're just 2 taps away from tickets to see any of the local sports teams or those shows that I was talking about. All right. The best part is Game Time offers event cancellation protection and job loss protection. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. Their all-in prices show you the total up front, and you get to see the view from your seat. You know exactly what to expect at checkout. Game Time's obsessed with helping you save money. Their zone deals let you pick the section while Game Time picks the seats for their best savings. And the Game Time guarantee is my favorite. You find the tickets in the same section and row for less money. Game Time credits you 110% of the difference. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code BIRDS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the redeem code BIRDS, BIRDS, for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Now on the Game Time app, guys, you can see your view from the seat. So if you find one of those seats next to the pirate ship in Tampa Bay, just be careful, because if it gets out of hand early, you may want to move away from the cannons. There's some lovely, I hear that there are some lovely establishments in the area that you may want to go to if the game gets out of hand. But what is your expectation as we do a quick look ahead? So first of all, we need to figure out the injury situation. Yeah. Obviously that will factor in. But Adam, what's sort of your expectation for this first round game right now?
I know the Bucs really well. So Rashad White's had a breakout season. He's not explosive. He's a start vision runner. I don't worry about him. Like, yeah, he's good out of the backfield. I worry about Chris Godwin, who may play in the slot. He's shown the ability to do both. Trey Palmer's a really good rookie. Who's the fastest receiver for the draft, probably off the tape. And the great Mike Evans, who's had a great year, and he didn't get his contract extended. So that worries me, Jeff, that you brought up their secondary, how they're getting torched. Defensively, they're getting better. I'll say this. They've been inconsistent. Now, they've had a lot of injuries, but we're going to talk about Yaya Diaby is a great rookie. They're around at Louisville. Elijah Cansey, we talked about him leading up to the draft.
Yeah,
Great
didn't play the first game.
What's that?
He didn't play against the Eagles the first time.
Correct. And then Devin White's kind of revived himself. He struggled. He got benched earlier in the season. He's back starting. There are plays to be made here. The bottom line is, look, the Eagles handled them. That was probably it wasn't their best game of the year. It was one of their best in week 3. We know they're not as good, but you know what? If they could put a good enough roster together with all these injuries, they absolutely could win this game. We're calling like we see it. This is a very winnable game. The Bucs, yes, they've been playing better lately by record. They also sometimes they play down the competition. They got smoked by the Saints last week. The game was not as close. The game was not even that close. They were getting crushed at halftime. Baker Mayfield had less than 50 yards in the first half against the Saints.
I think they're a very defense. I think their defense is legit. Their offense. I watched that game against the Panthers on Sunday before the Eagles game, and wow. This is shaping up, Clay, to be, like I said, it might set offensive football back 50 years the way both of these teams are trying to move the football right now.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, but Adam just said it. They got some weapons, obviously Godwin, obviously Evans, and it's going to come down to if Baker can get him the ball, because I promise you, they're probably going to be open. These guys are probably going to find some holes in the zone, and they're going to be open. But to me, it comes down to you got to get pressure on Baker Mayfield. Hopefully you get that pressure with your front four so you don't leave these guys open. To me, okay, Fletch is rested. Can these front four put pressure on Baker Mayfield? And that's going to be the telling part, because these receivers will be open. Mike Evans, another great year. Godwin, quick, slot, inside out. I mean, they got Kate Otten at tight end. Eagles aren't great at tight end. Luckily, I don't think Kate Otten is much of a weapon over there. So I think the defense has a chance to have a decent game if you can get pressure on Mayfield, but that's a big if. There'll be an opportunity there. And then the offense is just, like I said, I'm not worried about them. Even after this game with Wink Martindale, they should be able to clean this up. You got a veteran group, Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson. I mean, Mailata. These guys are smart enough. You have your running back picking up the blitzes. They should have time to throw the ball. But can Jalen get the ball to his receivers this week? Are they going to be able to scheme this game up, keep it clean, and get the ball out? And that's what it comes down to.
One more thing, Clay.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to ask Clay this question. So you're an offensive player, you're a tight end. You see, in your tape study, when your coaches present the game plan or when present the tape and when the cutups, so do you start saying, okay, I cannot wait to face this Eagle defense as a former player? If you're playing now, seeing their tape, would you get super excited? Like, how would you react to what this tape is?
Yeah, you'd say, okay, we can light this scoreboard up. That's what Marty Morningwig would always come in. I know I'm going throwback here, but with the Eagles, he goes, fellas, I'll be honest with you. This week we got a chance to light this scoreboard up.
Whoa!
We have a tough team. He's like, there's going to be holes. Obviously, we got to be clean, but we have a chance to light this scoreboard up. And that's what they're going to be saying about the Eagles. Since Patricia took over, I'll get some stats for mine and Greg's show and just talk about these stats, but I guarantee it's still going to be in the 30s for everything. There's going to be so many holes. When you come in, you turn on that film, first thing you look at is your matchups against the individual players. Eagles have good individual players, but when you start looking at a scheme, you're going to say, wow, if we can win our individual battles, there are going to be some holes on that defense.
One more thing.
Boy.
Yeah. Mayfield play with a bad rib injury. Legit bad rib injury. That's why his numbers did not look good today. It's part of it. So on Clay's point, maybe, just maybe, and I say maybe because Patricia doesn't seem to want to do it. Why can't you bring the heat? We'll talk more about in our pregame show, and I'm sure Greg and Clay will talk about it and Q&A. But that's one thing. You got nothing to lose this one. Could you bring the heat for goodness sake?
Hey, I think you're making a great point, Adam. And when you've done something for 6 straight weeks that hasn't worked,
Terrible.
and you're at that point now where it's not going to work. It's not going to just suddenly turn around to be able to beat 3 straight teams, and you might as well put it all on the table and try something new. And we'll see if the Eagles do that against Tampa Bay. We'll have it all covered this week on Inside the Birds with the Inside the Birds podcast, Q&A with Quentin, Michael, and Jason Avant, and of course, Inside the Tape with Clay Harbor and Greg Cosell, along with another pregame show and postgame show next weekend. Look forward to doing it all. Want to say thanks to all our great sponsors, including Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, Sky Motor Cars, Game Time, My Bookie, and everybody for watching. Thanks to James and Zach, our great production team. For Adam Caplan and Clay Harbor, I'm Geoff Mosher. Thanks for watching Inside the Birds Postgame Live.